So next up, we turn our attention to the shifting nature and the segmentation of the market and what may well be happening next. Please now welcome consultant, advisor, analyst, and owner of S1 NED, Steve O'Donnell. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you, Mark. That's fine. Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Vinopolis. So I want to start off just by positioning what I'm going to be talking about today. So far, Alistair's shown us what's happening in the market and how we can partner together and work together to be more effective. What I want to talk about is how we engage with customers, the real customers that pay our bills, and how we actually work out the messaging and the segmentation so that we can give our sales team the tools that they can go out to the market with and actually be effective. So hopefully, by the end of this session, you've got some idea about how to do rifle shooting rather than shotgun shooting in the MSP market. I'm going to give you some very basic tools. A couple of other things. There's three workshop sessions later today. I'm going to be running two of them. The first one is around marketing, which I guess is a continuation of this session, so you'll be very, very interactive. The second one's around social media. I encourage you to attend those sessions. And also, there's the question and answer session that we'll be seeing towards the end of the day. So let's move on. I got a fairly interesting career. I was in big IT for a while. I was global head of operations for British Telecom. Worked as an analyst out in Boston in Massachusetts, working with vendors, understanding marketing. Recently, I've just published a book called What Every CIO Wants, which is actually about how you do C-level selling, how you engage with the chief executive officer, I think, in the mid-market, because typically he is the CIO. He's the guy who's going to make those decisions, and how you actually work out what it is that you have to say to these guys and how you present your products, which products work and which products don't work as a MSP. Okay. So let's have a look at the size of the market. These are global numbers, so they're going to vary a little bit from the stuff that Alistair was talking about. They're a combination of IBM numbers and Forrester numbers. So the whole market for mid-market, which is companies of 1,000 people or less, is $250 billion. 80% of that market goes to you guys. 20% of it is do-it-yourself. So this is a very, very big market. A lot of it is served by buying tin and buying software that integrators put together and put onto the customer's premises today. But we're seeing some significant changes in that space, and I'm going to try and share some of that with you. An interesting statistic, IBM spend $100 million every year on social media for the mid-market. Staggering amount of money. And the reason they do this is that 85% of all buying decisions in the mid-market are done through search and social media. Staggering. Okay? Another interesting statistic is that 80% of deals that the major vendors are doing in the mid-market are going through the channel. So there's a real opportunity there to get engaged. Okay. Nobody is a market leader in the channel. No one's got even 1% of the market, which is a fairly staggering thing too. So it's a wide open market for growth. A few other key statistics. I'm not going to bore you to death with statistics, but the managed services market, global managed services market, is scheduled to grow from 13% of the total addressable market to 19% next year. The hosting market is going to grow from 3 to 6%, so it's going to double in the next 12 months. And product sales in the mid-market are going to shrink from 46% of the total TAM to 36% of the total TAM. Now, these are Forrester numbers, so I apologize, Alistair, for using another analyst's numbers, but nevertheless, I think what it's showing is that there's a direction here. We are moving away from selling tin to selling services, And the mid-market is doing that faster than all the other markets. And I think the rest of my presentation might help you to understand why that is. What are those key drivers? Why is the mid-market so compelled to adopt services rather than product? Another interesting thing is that currently, gross margins are much higher. Again, these are IBM numbers from statistics gathered from their channel. But the gross margin in managed services is pretty high and pretty significant, although there's a quite significant cash flow impact on selling services rather than selling tin. You sell the tin, you get the money, you pocket the EBIT. You're selling managed services, you're having to pay to deliver those services, but then you're collecting the money afterwards. So it's a bit more of a banking operation than standard channel activities. So this is probably a good place to go. The market's going there, the margins are higher. How do we get there? Big question. So this is a bit of a training session. It's marketing for dummies, if you like, or marketing for people that haven't been to business school or don't understand what marketing's about. But what I've tried to do is try to simplify the basic concepts so that we can be effective and really focus our messages and arm the salespeople with the right tools to do the job. So there's two kinds of discovery. The first is you've got a product and you want to sell it. So what segment do we want to sell it into? What segment has got the problem that we want to solve? Or secondly, if you're going from selling hardware and software into selling managed services, which managed services and which segments might be the most profitable with the least competition? So you can do the discovery both ways. It depends on where you are in your business stage. Let's move on then. I want to talk to you about something called ARC. ARC is a piece of thinking around simplifying how you can determine what customers actually want to buy and their behaviors and what messages actually work okay. And there are fundamentally 5 key drivers that change the thinking of a business. The first one is what business stage they're at. Are they a startup? Or are they a global enterprise that owns the whole market? That changes the way they think about things. The second thing is, how important is IT to this company? Okay, if you're a construction company building houses, maybe IT isn't too important to you. It might be. Maybe logistics is an important piece. But if you're a bank, then basically a bank is an IT shop with money. So IT is incredibly important and makes a huge difference. So it depends on what kind of business you're talking to as to how important IT is, and that impacts thinking. The third thing, and this is really important in the mid-market, is leadership. What kind of leadership is this company under? And we're going to have a look at that in some detail, thinking about how the chief executive or CIO actually thinks, the kind of person they are, and the kind of thing that this business is actually going through. The fourth is location. And this is really important for the mid-market and for resellers, because one of your major competitive advantages is location. You can be close to your customer, you can be around the corner from the customer, you understand the local issues, and you can offer local services. That's pretty important. And then finally, what kind of business is it? Is it a public business, a private business, a government business, a charity, etc.? So all these things come together to offer manipulations to this ARC, this concept. And I want to explain what that is. So ARC stands for agility, risk, and cost. These are the 3 things that drive business behavior, business buying behavior. So let's talk about the least important one first, cost. Sometimes we can encourage customers to change vendor because we're cheaper than the current vendor. It's true, but it's actually quite a tough sell. If all the time you're selling on cost, you're not going to be terribly successful, because statistics show that most customers don't buy on cost, except in quite limited markets and quite limited segments. That customers buy for 2 other key reasons. They buy for agility. And let me explain what agility means. Agility means being able to do something that the guy down the road can't do, so you can steal all of his customers, you can win market share and kill the competition. It means that you can operate faster. Let me give you an example. Orange, telco, right? They put agility into their customer relationship management platform that allowed them to change their pricing extremely rapidly. They were able to change the pricing extremely rapidly and deliver those new prices to the shops within weeks. The competition took 3 to 6 months to change pricing because the CRM platforms couldn't support it. Orange won huge amounts of market share. So agility was a major incentive for Orange to invest in IT. Did they care how much it cost? Not really. What they cared about was how much new business they could get. Agility is the single strongest buying incentive for any customer. And if you message around agility, and if you can produce products that give your client agility, you're on a winner. You really are on a winner. And I'm going to try and help you to understand how to do that. The second thing about buying behavior is risk. Now, what I'm not talking about is the risk of losing all your data. That's part of it, sure. But what I'm talking about is that most businesses gamble. They make an investment, they put the money into doing something, building out a new product, and the chief executive is sweating. He's thinking, oh my God, I've spent half the company's capital. Am I going to get a return on this? And what he will do is he will invest money to reduce his risk, to ensure that his business investment is actually going to deliver. Notice I'm not talking about IT here, because we're not talking about selling to IT people. We're selling to business people. So these are the three drivers: agility, cost, and risk. Okay? There are no other drivers. Anything else you think about will fall into one of these three categories. And if you want to create a message, if you lead on cost, guess what? You're going to end up in a price war. If you lead in agility, you're going to engage the CEO and the CIO. If you engage on agility and risk, you've really got something interesting. And if you can say, I've got something that can give you business agility, it can reduce your risk, and by the way, it's cheaper as well, then you've got an absolutely killer message. And what I want to do, I think, is to try and help you to understand how to go about constructing these kind of messages, looking at your products, your product portfolios, the market segments where these messages actually work. Another key takeaway here is that not all messages work for all segments. So you've actually got to think about how you construct your message for a segment. Here's an example message. I'll let you read it. I'm not going to read it to you, but can you see how that as a message, that would fit the mid-market, and it's giving you a good balance between agility, doing something that the competition can't do. The other medium-sized retailers haven't got this, so you're going to have an advantage. Also, you're able to do the stuff that the majors can do, so the risk of the majors stealing your lunch, that's going away. And actually, we're going to be able to push the costs out. We're going to be able to level those costs out over time. You've got a flexible thing so that you can scale up if your business becomes successful, or you can scale back if your business perhaps isn't quite achieving the targets. So that is how you would construct a message that gives you a good balance between A, R, and C. Another thing that's important here is what business stage your customer's at. If they're I've tried to paint this a bit like government, okay? So you've got special forces. They are the startup guys. They started last week. They've got nothing to lose. They're prepared to take absolutely gargantuan risks because they almost expect to go out of business. They've made a small investment. They're going for market share. They are prepared to take risk. They haven't got very much money. Agility is pretty important. They need to be able to change because actually the assumptions that they've made about their business might not be right. The market might not want exactly what they want, and they need to be agile and be able to change their business model very quickly. So agility is important, Risk is of no importance at all. They'll get on with it. They will do stuff that enterprises wouldn't dream of doing. They'll take on new products and they'll do stuff if it gives them that advantage. The mid-market, growth stage businesses, the balance tips. These are the guys who are the army. They've got some market, they've got market, they don't want to lose it, but they want to take market off the top guys. They want to take market share off the enterprises. They're prepared to take more risk than the enterprises, but less risk than the startups. They're also interested in agility, because agility will help with customer acquisition. And they're profitable. So cost isn't quite such a major issue as for a startup. Let's now move into the enterprise space, where risk becomes the single biggest driver. In fact, these are the guys who are the police. They've got the territory, and all they want to do is stop somebody else eating their lunch. They want to stop anyone taking market share from them. So they behave like the police. They stop people doing things. They're slow to make decisions. Agility, let the other guy take the risk on the agility. If it works, we'll adopt it, but we'll adopt it later. They're interested in cost, and they're interested in incrementally dropping the costs over time. So enterprise messages don't work for startups, and startup messages don't work for enterprises. It's one way of segmenting the market. Let's now move on and look at leadership. If you've got a customer who's had troubles, perhaps not been making profits, and they've had to replace the managing director or the chief executive, they've probably bought in a paratrooper. This is a guy who's a professional managing director, CEO. He's a business turnaround guy. What he's going to do is he's going to drive out cost. He's going to change the marketing, the messaging. He's going to change the product mix. He's going to go after customers. He is actually more he's more willing to take risk than pretty much any other kind of leader. Okay? Because he's got something to change. He's prepared to push the envelope and go and take risk. He's not so interested in costs, because actually his job is to fix the business. And if part of IT is an enabler to help him fix the business, the cost actually isn't that important. Even if part of his remit is to drive costs out of the business, he will be prepared to spend money to drive costs out of the business. Because IT, after all, isn't about cost, is it? IT is about automation and business enablement. And finally, he's extremely interested in agility, because he's come in, he's a new guy, he doesn't know everything about the business, and he might be wrong. So he might want to change his mind. Agility is pretty important, the ability to change his mind. And if we have a look, you can see that there are actually 4 different kinds of leader in a mid-sized business. You've got the old-timer who's been there forever. He's pretty risk-averse. He knows it all. He's not going to change his mind terribly much. He's focused on cost. It's probably, if you're the incumbent, you're going to be the incumbent forever. If you are the usurper, you're going to have a tough time getting past the old-timer, because he's got his mates, his pals that he's been doing business with for a long time. So be aware of that and think about it when you're doing your marketing and your messaging. Consultant. This is kind of a business recovery agent who's typically an accountant. They'll come in from PwC or Deloitte or something like that. He's doing a big financial thing, and he's all about the numbers. He's not going to be terribly interested in IT and changing the business. He's just about fixing the numbers. Okay? Again, a difficult guy to sell to. Family businesses, you can have a balance between a family business can end up looking like a paratrooper or an old-timer, depends on the family, or it can end up looking like the post office. Can't make a decision because they're all tied up in knots, internecine warfare. Again, you need to think about this when you're doing your business. Another thing that's important is the kind of solution that you're offering. I've categorized these solutions into 4. The first one is the one where agility really matters. That's the invest category app. If you make that application better, that service better, the business gets better. So therefore, it's not very cost sensitive. So if you spend another £100,000 on the CRM system, but it drives £2 million of profit out of the business, Hey, that's a good decision. Let's do it. Okay. We move on. We've got operate. So this is like backup as a service, email. Nobody cares if it's good or bad. It tends to be very cost-driven and risk-driven. We move into 2 new ones, contain and kill. Contain is where you've got legacy stuff. Maybe it's an EPOS system. It's old, it's cranky. The guys that developed it are in bath chairs because they're all retired. The hardware, you've got to buy the new hardware from eBay because they don't make it anymore, haven't made it for the last 20 years. You've all got customers who've got stuff like that. No one wants to change it. That's risk. Only when something in that contain category becomes mission critical because it's something the business needs for agility purposes, does it move into kill. And kill is you've got to shoot it, you've got to replace it, you've got to make the investment to take it out and put something else in place. And then you've got an opportunity to spend money again. So if you're looking for old legacy stuff, you could be an MSP focused on this kill category. How do you come in and replace this old stuff with new stuff? So on this slide, I really talk about how you take these different IT segments, mix them up with the different types of business, the different types of leaders, and you can then come up with a kind of ARC score. Is it agility, risk, or cost messaging that's really going to work in this for this customer, for this type of customer with this kind of application? And you've got to be able to do the micro-segmentation because different messaging can work differently for the same customer for different types of app. Location's important too. And localization can make a big difference, and you can segment around whether you're local to your customer or not. You can expand your business because previously, where you were selling tin to the local community, now you're selling services. And why can't you sell those services on a global basis? Depends on the app, depends on the message, depends on the segment. Another thing that's important, I think, is working closely with your customer. Because many IT initiatives aren't driven by IT anymore. They're driven by the business development manager, the sales director in your customer, who's going out there, winning business from his customers, and you need to be engaged right at the front end. So understand the full value chain. How do IT buying decisions get made in an enterprise? What you don't want to be is the guy at the end who gets told, we want one of those, and we're going to ask you, you, and you for the price, and we'll choose the cheapest. Bad place to be. You need to be right at the beginning, forming the opinions and setting the agenda. Okay, so I'm finished. This is my book. If you have a look on the internet for it, I'm going to give you a free code so you can download it for free because you've been here today. It's Whiskey Echo 68 Romeo, WE68R. There's a free code. Have the book, enjoy, and hopefully I'll see you later on this afternoon. Thank you very much.